Still Poddable, still Poddable. Boston Celtics, still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh yeah! Still Poddable, still Poddable. Boston Celtics, still Poddable, still Poddable. And a 19.
Deep Rob, Jim Becker, J. King.
Still Poddable, still Poddable.
The Caesar on the court to get another ring.
Still Poddable, still Poddable.
Everybody in the chat now sing.
Still Poddable, still Poddable, still Poddable, still Poddable. The Boston Celtics, still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh yeah! Shut your ass up, man.
Daddy's always halfway there.
All right, welcome into another edition of Still Poddable. My name is Brian Robb of Mass Live, joined by the one and only Jay King, the kid of The Athletic. This is the free episode of Still Poddable,
money,
which you can find also on the CLNS YouTube, and you can check us out Monday through Friday here at Still Poddable at patreon.com/Still Poddable. But this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app. Jay, we've had a couple games in the books since we last talked here, but I think the main story heading into a very important showdown with the Charlotte Hornets on Friday night at TD Garden.
home and home
Home.
to end the season with the Hornets. What a world we're living in. Meaningful basketball, 96 minutes of meaningful basketball.
And everyone on the Celtics will be there for Friday, except for Jaylen Brown, who was officially ruled out by the team Thursday afternoon. Only guy listed on the injury report after the whole team had the night off on Wednesday. So the only real relevance to this is this officially takes Jaylen out of the race potentially to be All-NBA. He won't hit 65 games. He had to play these last two games to hit that 65 game mark. And so, yeah, Jay, I mean, just initial impressions of like, this was a saga, not really drama. There really wasn't, I don't know if you can call it drama. It just was like the only really semi-relevant storyline in the last couple weeks of the season. But now Jaylen obviously is getting some extra rest here heading into the playoffs, it looks like.
Yeah, I think it's probably for the best. I know that he wanted to arm himself with as much information as possible about how to play when not at his best. And that was a real thing. I know there's some talk out there that he just wanted to get to 65 games. That's why he was playing all the games, speculation about that. But I overheard him multiple times, and this was before, I think, even this latest injury, talking to the coaches about how meaningful it was for him to play when he was not 100% healthy, and talking to assistant coaches about what he learned while playing a little banged up. That's a real thing for him. And he talked about how he watched Paul Pierce, and obviously Paul Pierce wasn't as explosive an athlete as Jaylen was at his best, or Jaylen is at his best. But Pierce could get to a spot. He had this similar size to Jaylen. He played with like a herky-jerky game. He didn't need to be going full speed to get to his spot and to kill you. And so the fact that Jaylen was watching his game, like, he was really trying to adapt and adjust to being less than full strength. Do I think the 65 games was a factor? Maybe. Jaylen denied it. But at the same time, it was like becoming a thing where he was playing through stuff, and some nights he just looked really bad. That Knicks game, he looked slow. He looked hobbled. It got to the point where Kristaps Porzingis even came out and said, like, you're a warrior, man. You have a warrior mindset. You preach it. You're tough. Awesome. But, like, why?
Right.
Like, why are you still playing? We don't need you to do this right now. Let's just rest up, get healthy. And Porzingis kind of walked it back at the end of his quote, said that he trusts Jaylen to do the right things to prepare. But when your own teammate is being like, buddy, just
And it's Porzingis of all people.
And it's Porzingis of all people, maybe Jaylen's best friend on the team, looking out for you and saying, like, man, we don't need you out there. Just take a rest, figure it out on your own time. You'll have the first round of the playoffs to figure it out. It's not like you have to be at your absolute best during the first round of the playoffs. You'll have practice time. You'll have whatever. Like, you don't need to be out there grinding on the second leg of a back-to-back in Orlando. And Jaylen was questionable to begin in that game before eventually getting ruled out. But I think this is a good thing that he's ruled out. The fact that he's the only one sitting out the first game against Charlotte suggests that he might sit both games and he might just be done for the regular season now. I don't know if he would have made All-NBA. I think
I agree with you. I don't think so.
He would have had a case, but especially with how many guys have been out. But, playing through it, it would have given him a chance to get eligible for the awards. But also his stats were like he was only playing limited minutes. He was efficient in a lot of those games, but wasn't like he was really helping his case by playing game after game. And last year, he was healthy enough to be eligible, did not make All-NBA. That pissed him off. He went on a run then to win Eastern Conference Finals MVP and Finals MVP. But if he was fighting for that, I think it was kind of a misguided decision, because I don't know how great a chance he has of being voted to one of the All-NBA teams anyway. But again, I don't think, maybe it was a factor, but it definitely wasn't the only factor. He was not lying about his desire to arm himself with more information about how to play when not at his best.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that. From a standpoint of, like you said, it's just valuable information to have to how to adjust your game for out there. But I think it probably, and he was good. He scored 31 points last week while on this minutes limit. So he was clearly this was valuable to him in some ways in terms of finding efficient ways to score, even though it came against some crappy defenses. With that said, it's like when you got to the next game or even the Wizards game, it's like, how many times do you have to do that in terms of to get that value out of it? You can still test it out and go out a few times, but there's also the risk reward of being like, well, are you going to make something worse? And if it's making it harder for you to eventually recover here, then, we don't need to see this out to the finish line, if you will. And then on the All-NBA front, I do think maybe, like you said, if it was a subliminally part of it for him, potentially, obviously he publicly denied it, but, friend of the show, I'm looking at Michael Pina's All-NBA ballot here from The Ringer that he wrote about earlier this week. And I don't even think Jaylen made it honorable mention out of his choices and did not make the team. So it was one of those situations where, like you said, he just was in a tough situation. He didn't have his best year, I think, from a statistical standpoint anyway. I think he had his best year in a number of ways, maybe defensively and parts of his game. But the three-point shooting there wasn't there all year, and it was just a lot of competition. A lot of guys got to 65 in the last week or two here, and probably, may have pushed him out of it.
Yeah, and I actually think he's grown so much as a playmaker that the scoring doesn't matter as much as it used to. If you look at the stats when Jaylen's on the court and Jason Tatum's not on the court, the Celtics have come such a long way over the last couple of years with that. And obviously part of that is due to the guys that are on the court around Jaylen. But I think he's just gotten so much better at just creating for others, allowing other people to flourish around him, the defense stuff. He's really, dedicated himself to that over the last couple of years. He was always a good defender, or especially early in his career, he would just lose focus, and you'd be like, why is he just dreaming on the side of the court while this guy's going back door? And those plays don't really happen as much anymore. I think he was always a student of the game, but he's learned a lot more about the game. His IQ grows by leaps and bounds every year. So I think even if he doesn't make All-NBA, he had a successful season. He had a very good season, and now it's just about getting ready for the playoffs. This could start a larger discussion about just the state of the NBA in general And like, when did it become a bad thing to play through pain? You know, like, and it seems so hypocritical. All these people who get upset about load management, and here's a guy who always wants to be out there, who puts in a ton of work behind the scenes to be out there, who is clearly dealing with knee issues and a nagging concern, and people are upset. And Jaylen said, like, there's no promise that rest would help at all. And like, I have no reason not to believe him on that one. The fact that the Celtics were willing to trot him out there game after game suggests that they feel similarly, or at least don't feel strongly enough in the other direction, that they just decided, Jaylen, we're going to shut you down. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter about All-NBA. Like, you're not playing. That never happened. The other aspect of the All-NBA thing, like, he already got his money.
Right.
He doesn't need to make All-NBA to see a bigger contract. That was not going to be a factor. So it's possible he didn't care about that at all. It's possible that, you know, he decided a while ago, I'm not going to play for awards. I'm playing for a championship, and that this is really what he thought was the best path for him to get ready for the playoffs. But when you do see him hobbled and you see him out there, there were some times when he was getting blown by. There were other times when he'd go up in the middle of the lane. You'd think he was going to cock it back and hammer it home, and it's like it just goes up for a layup. It's like, that's not Jaylen Brown. That's not the Jaylen you're used to. The reckless Jaylen who goes and tries to dunk on guys, even Giannis at the rim. But I do think this is something that people should admire. The fact that he wants to be out there, the fact that he always wants to play, and they're a team full of guys who want to play. Jason Tatum, I think, sets that tone as well as anybody in the league, pretty much, among superstars. If you look at the last, since he got into the league, nobody plays more than he does. Nobody plays more minutes than he does. Nobody plays more in the playoffs than he does. Nobody. He does it year after year. He doesn't sit. He plays back-to-backs. And the Celtics, that's their culture. And I think that's one reason why they're great. That's one reason why they're tough. That's one reason why they almost got the road record for most wins, is because they care about shit like playing through pain. They care about shit like persevering through tough things. They care about rising to the challenge. And you can't respect all that stuff and then be like, why is Jaylen trying to play through pain? Like there's it just doesn't make sense. Now, if he was doing it for All-NBA, that's the wrong reason. It is, especially after he got his money. If he was playing for an extra $60 million or whatever, man, go do you. Absolutely. But he's not at this point, and I really don't think that was his main priority in this. I actually think it was about trying to prepare himself for the gauntlet to come. And maybe you disagreed with his choice, but he's the one who feels what his body is doing. He's the one who knows more about all that stuff than all of us put together. So but it was an interesting thing over the last couple of weeks, especially after the Knicks game, when he played 21 minutes, sat out the fourth quarter in overtime. And then Joe Mazzulla came out and said, like, we got what we needed to get out of him. What do you mean you got 3.5 quarters? What do you mean you got what you needed to get out of him? And that was the comment that made me think maybe it was the 65 games.
Yeah, because he also needed to hit 20 minutes to qualify for those games. So that's where like the breadcrumbs were. If you were.
That's the comment that kind of put that in my brain. Maybe it is that he hasn't played since though, which will preclude him from getting to 65 games, and so maybe.
But I think that game was like he worked. Do you think he looked the worst in that game out of since the games he came back?
Absolutely, yeah. And part of it is just that the Knicks have a lot of big wings, And when he's athletically hobbled, then he needs to rely on being stronger, on being bigger, on shooting over the top of people. And it's a lot harder when you're going up against OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, physical wings who can guard. So I think that was part of it. And then, but yeah, it was a really strange game for him, because I mean, it was clear they just benched him. I don't know whether that was a plan to bench him. Joe acted like it was the plan all along to bench him. And again, that's why the 65 game noise kind of picked up steam. It was always sort of speculated about, but that was where kind of I don't know if red flags are the right word, but that was where kind of looked like maybe they are angling for 65 games. And then he hasn't played since. So not really a controversy, but a talking point at the end of the season when there are no real talking points, because it's just about dried up. It's time for the games that matter. It's time for 2 more bullshit games that don't matter, and then games that really matter.
All right. Well, with Jaylen going to be out, obviously, Friday through the end of the week here, so it could potentially create some opportunities for some guys lower on the roster, without a doubt here. And that will be intriguing, especially for people who might want to use Prize Picks, which is the best place to get in real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You can just pick more or less for at least on 2 players for a shot of up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. So we know, Jay, like this time of year, Jaylen's going to be out. I would imagine the rest of the starters are going to be out.
Maybe a little Shireman time, a little
Maybe
time for Baylor Shireman.
But
if not Friday, then Sunday.
Would think on Sunday, and I'm looking at straight at Peyton Pritchard on Sunday. Looking at all the mores for him, especially since he's, I feel like, Mr. Triple Double at that time of year. So you can sign up odd Prize Picks today, get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to receive the $3 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, so going back to Jaylen here. Porzingis, you witnessed this in the locker room when Porzingis had this quote, and do you feel like for Porzingis just to have that sort of attitude now, like, is this a sign, not like leadership, I guess, but like maybe just like him becoming more comfortable with, like, you know, voicing something like this, being like, Jaylen, like we're not like we're worried about you, but like we want to make sure that you, like, we don't need you for these games, obviously, even though he probably thinks Jaylen has the right priorities in mind here, just trying to get himself in the right state of mind for these games. But I thought that was fascinating that Porzingis felt like comfortable enough even to say that publicly about one of your stars.
I thought it was a misstep. I thought that's something you could easily address privately with Jaylen and tell Jaylen, like, look, man, I admire you. I think you're gritty as hell. I am grateful that you want to be out on the court with us as much as possible. I am thrilled that you want to play day after day and test your body and see where you're at and adapt to what your normal is right now. But we don't need you out there. You could have done that privately. It could have had the same effect. Instead, he says it publicly. It increases the heat on Jaylen. The speculation about the 65 game stuff and whether he was, doing too much, being out there, all that stuff just ramped up because of Kristaps's comment. And Kristaps, like, he's very honest. He's very open with the media on a team of sort of robots. He's probably the lone exception, somebody who's thoughtful, who's interesting. And I think he was right. Like, I don't think he was wrong in what he said. I just wouldn't have said it. I would have talked to Jaylen about that inside the locker room. Told him, look, man, we don't need this from you. We just, if you need to figure out how to play, do it on the practice court when you're not, playing 22, 24, 30 minutes of high intensity basketball. We don't need you wearing yourself down. You looked very bad against New York. Like, just sit out the rest of the regular season. We got you, and then you can figure it out another way. But yeah, I thought that comment specifically, especially after Joe has been very supportive of Jaylen with his comments. Jason Tatum has been supportive. Everybody's been supportive. And then Kristaps is like, yeah, you're a Warrior, but like, what the hell are you doing out there, man? And
two seeds locked up for a month.
I thought it just changed the conversation about Jaylen a little bit in a way that,
you can see
Kristaps probably wouldn't have wanted.
No, I agree with you that that was clearly something that good intentions, but did not need to be said publicly from KP. And yeah,
it wasn't the biggest deal.
No, it's not. I mean, it's just weird. Yeah, there's just been like nothing even resembling that over the last 2 years of this team, which I think is just a huge part of their success. Is just the chemistry in that locker room and the relationships there. And not that this will do anything with that, but that was just like the first time where you had someone, not openly questioning, but like you said, fanning the flames, if you will, around Jaylen's situation.
And I don't think it was just Jaylen that he was questioning, by the way.
Yeah.
That's like medical staff. What are you doing letting him get out there?
Sure.
Joe, why aren't you just making sure this guy sits down? Like, he was sort of subtweeting everybody indirectly. Right. And I'm reading into that, obviously, but when a player plays, he's not the only one involved in that decision. And so for Kristaps to be like, wow, why is he even going out there? I think that sentiment speaks to, questioning the medical staff, questioning Joe, questioning basically everybody. And that's why it just didn't need to be shared. And like, again, it's not a huge deal. It does not matter whatsoever, really, in the long run. Jaylen and Kristaps are good friends, by all indications. And I think Kristaps meant well by it. It just kind of shifted the conversation and probably put Jaylen under some heat. That said, Jaylen did sit the next 2 games, so maybe it was a good thing.
Yep. Left an imprint, perhaps. Maybe would put him over the top. Last thing on Jaylen for like just going forward now. Like I think it's safe, like you said, to assume he's not going to play Sunday if he's not playing Friday. And now when you get into this first round series, like he's going to play, but I do wonder from like on court standpoint, like how much, if they ask of him a lot in the first round, like if he is going to get those tough defensive assignments out of the gate. And granted, with the Magic, there aren't too many of those on that roster compared to other teams. But if they like just throw his usual work flow at him for even the first round, or if they kind of keep the foot off the gas early in these series when they, to hopefully in the standpoint that he's still pacing himself, getting himself right for when they need him most. I wonder, because you can see either side of that, like he's going to have a week and a half of rest here going into it, which may have, certainly may help to some degree, but you don't necessarily, like, even if he sat out the Magic series, which I don't expect him to do, obviously, but like you don't need him in that series regardless, or the Hawks, whoever they end up getting.
Yeah, and this kind of puts a renewed importance on having quick series.
Yeah.
Like, it was a blessing for the Celtics last year that they had nothing longer than a 5-game series. I'm just a writer, and I had a newborn baby last playoffs, and that was still by far the freshest I've been during a Celtics playoff run. Like the previous year, 2023, when they went 7 with the Heat, in these playoff series, like, you're flying back and forth. There's, once you get to the second or third round, there's no rest. It's like you travel day, game, travel day, game, travel day, game, and it gets grueling. And last year it was like finish the first round, week rest. Finish the second round, week rest. Finish the Eastern Conference Finals, week rest. Kick the Mavs' ass, have a parade, go home. And so I think with Jaylen now banged up, and obviously you want Al to get rest, you want Drew Holiday to get rest. Like, there are a lot of reasons for the Celtics to take care of business, not trip up in series, and not allow them to get extended. Like, just make sure you take care of your business and do quick work. And that, before last season, that was not their MO. It was always like, if they didn't need to win a game, basically, they were probably going to lose it. And then they'd go on the road. It would be, they'd backs against the wall, and they'd come out and win an incredible game and do incredible things. But, they've lost a lot of winnable games over the years. And hopefully for them, last year was a breakthrough and the new norm, and not just an exception to the previous pattern of just kind of having long series, basically no matter who they play.
Yeah. And you mentioned the playoffs there, Jay. It is going to be quite the scene at the TD Garden coming up. Even the Lakers game a couple months ago, with Luka making his arrival in town, started that kind of buzz that we'll see all playoffs line at the Garden. And if you want to check out the Garden, get into the building for those, you can check out the Game Time app. You can pick an upcoming game on the app, browse through the seats on Game Time picks, and then you can, whether you're looking for a Celtics game, whether you're looking to go to a concert or a show or Fenway, it's all there on the app. And they have a lot of great features, including seat views. You get the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you to 110% of the difference. And all-in pricing, which allows you to toggle, you can show the total up front and have no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Ooh.
All right. Take a quick look around the league tonight. Orlando locked in to the 7th seed now, for the play-in.
Well, yes, play-in.
Obviously, they're going to host either, it looks like, the Hawks or the Bulls, who are fighting out for the AFC. I guess the Heat are very, very long shots to get it. And I think the Hawks and the Bulls are playing some pretty bad teams on the stretch. So that should be there for them to get into that spot there if they want it. Elsewhere, Bucks and Pistons still kind of up for grabs in the 5 and 6 slots. Knicks, I guess, can technically clinch the 3 seed tonight, I believe. But they're losing late to the Pistons, so that could potentially get interesting into the last weekend here. Anything you're keeping an eye on here in the East right now in these last 4 or 5 days?
I mean, for the Celtics, I think, to me, Orlando would be the toughest first round series, because they're big, they're physical, they defend. I know it was the Celtics backups, but they felt that against Orlando. They turned the ball over constantly. They could not even get into offense. And I know they were playing some guys that would never be out there during normal times. J.D. Davison was getting run. Drew Peterson and Jordan Walsh were out there. So it was an unusual game, but still, like, just the size, the physicality. They have Paolo, who's been averaging basically like 30, 10, and 5 for a while now. Franz, who might be even better than Paolo, and both of them are like 6'9" houses. So they've had a tough season. They couldn't stay healthy. They lost Jalen Suggs. Like, they've been just unable to find a groove, keep a groove. But at the end of the day, I still feel like that's a big physical team that, even if it's a sweep, even if it's a 5-game series, you just won't get out of that series feeling comfortable by yourself. You'll have some bruises. They've got guys who can match up physically, if not like actually basketball wise, with Tatum, with Brown. But I just feel like that's a team I would want to avoid. And not that I think they would beat the Celtics or anything. I don't think there's much chance of that, but just feel like if it's between that and Atlanta or Miami, like those other teams, I think have far less chance of disrupting the Celtics than the Magic do.
Yeah, Orlando is the only legitimate defense out of those. They're up to second in the league now, which is kind of crazy given they're a 500 team, but also speaks to just how bad their offense is. But yeah, like that's a team historically before last season, like gave you a little bit of trouble. And this is a far different team than those, but the best guys on those team has gotten better, and it's the least you won't be able to like overpower them necessarily with double bigs because they have kind of the size to go match up a few down low on that front. But it is kind of wild just looking at them, Jay. Like I don't like they have no one on their team that's like in the rotation regularly that shoots better than 36% from three, which is just wild in today's NBA. But again, they make up
especially
their defense
against the Celtics.
Exactly. So that it will be tough to keep pace with them. For the Magic, for the keep pace, if the Celtics are hitting their threes, then these games can get ugly quickly. But they pushed the Cavs to 7 last year, which is I think it was a bit of a surprise too. So that'll be fascinating to see
that
how
was
that
the
plays.
grossest series ever.
I know.
Absolutely despicable basketball that whole time. And that Cavs team was not like they're not what they are now.
Yeah.
But I do think that speaks to what level the Magic can reach defensively. They don't have Suggs, but they do have KCP now, and so they're a very gifted defensive team with tons of size, tons of physicality, and Paolo and Franz. They can just drive right through you. Like they're some of the few big wings that can just like house you. They can house you. I think those guys. I've said it a lot, and this year hasn't been like the best year for my stock. Partly because those guys have been in and out they both had oblique injuries. But I think that duo is going to be very, very dangerous over the years to come. Once they figure some things out, once they develop the three ball and just kind of everything offensively to unlock that offense, because defense, toughness, physicality, they have all of that, and they're huge.
Yeah, the size with them is across the board. There is damn impressive. So that will, if they get another real scorer in there, maybe in the backcourt, that also can play defense, and that'll be a team to watch.
They're shooting 31.6% from behind.
That's just despicable numbers offensively.
That's so gross.
Like, and I don't know, like
that's a number you don't expect to see in 2025.
That's like a 1995 number on a bad offensive team in 1995, like 31%. Like I wonder how far we have to go back to find maybe like some process Sixers teams probably shot that bad, but like good word. Playoff team.
So gross.
Just forget it. All right, let's wrap up here because we talked about this earlier. I mean, we haven't hit on this yet, but both of us had kind of the Nuggets in our pool of potential like teams that could upset the Thunder out west last week. Obviously, a lot has changed now. They've cleaned house. Michael Malone gone. Move gone. Does this firing just immediately pull them from that pool in your mind when like things are clearly that bad where they make a crazy move like that in the freaking last week of the season where it's like they're that desperate?
Well, clearly they're desperate. What was interesting to me about the aftermath of it was that Nikola Jokic did not seem too disheartened at all.
Yeah.
I think he said something like, I'm going to botch this so much. But he said something like, when you get fired in my country, like when someone gets fired in my country, like, you could be next. Like basically this is going to kick our ass. This is going to get us fired up. He said, woke the beast, might have woken the beast or something like that. And it's like, okay. And I don't think he like disliked Michael Malone or anything like that. But maybe it was time for a new voice. And obviously they know better better than anybody. But I thought it was just really interesting that Jokic had that. Maybe he's just trying to be a leader, trying to, invigorate the team after a shocking dismissal of their coach, Michael Malone, who led them to a championship, did a lot of great things over 9 or 10 years in Denver, whatever it was. But that was interesting. And the talk afterward has been basically that some of it was they didn't think Malone was maximizing the defense of that group. And I can see that. Like, whatever you want to say about the guys they've lost, which was huge, like their supporting cast has been diminished throughout the years. They still have Aaron Gordon, who's an incredibly gifted athlete and defender. Michael Porter Jr., who, like, not a great defender, but has come a long way, and he's also 6'10" and long. Then you have Peyton Watson, who's an extremely gifted defender. Like, that dude he's an incredible defensive playmaker. Christian Brown, who's athletic and pretty long and can play on the wing, can guard. Like, they do have some guys who can guard. And so for them to be in the bottom third of the league, I know Jokic isn't. I guess his defense is kind of a controversial issue depending on who you ask, whether you ask the numbers or somebody who actually watches. but I don't know if they should be that bad defensively. And if they're not, and they can play like a top 10 defense, and then they have Jokic, then maybe things get interesting in the playoffs. So I don't want to discount them just because they do have the most brilliant basketball player in the world, one of the best basketball players ever, and he's probably at the peak of his powers right now. But they've got some stuff to figure out, and already Adelman has come in and made some changes. Jalen Pickett played 31 minutes in their first game under him. Russell Westbrook only played 17. So that was like one of the first changes stylistically or tactically that we've seen. And I'm interested to see what's going to happen over there, like how the rest of it is going to work. I think if Jokic is on board, and then it has a chance, and they have a chance to get it done. But it is crazy, like, just how much the NBA changes in 2 years. Like, a couple years ago, Michael Malone was out there talking shit, like telling, we played D'Lo off the court, yada yada yada, like, and his team was just writing his checks, and now he's gone. And Jokic's like, yeah, might have awoken the beast. What?
It's honestly, it kind of makes you appreciate the Celtics situation that much more, of like, both from the front office and coaching standpoint. Like, the quote unquote Cold War that was going on in Denver, that's kind of just wild for between the front office and the coaching staff, or Malone and Booth. It seemed like obviously how in sync the Celtics have been kind of across the board since Joe took over, and even obviously before that with Brad and Danny for years. Like, that can be hard to find even on really good teams around the league consistently, and they have it here. And now it's Brad and the front office have hit far more often than miss on like added additions or on the edges of the roster and maximizing their star power. And the Nuggets were able to do that for 1 year, but then they lost some pieces and took some wrong swings they shouldn't have. Certainly gave out some contracts they shouldn't have. And now
you didn't like the Dario Saric?
I mean, the Dario Saric. I mean, I can't wait to see if he's going to exercise his player option next year for $5 million. I mean, good God.
Yeah, and I think obviously, like, you didn't even have to be paying close attention to realize that Michael Malone and Calvin Booth were at odds with each other.
Yeah,
because they would take not so veiled shots at each other in the press. And I think it was pretty clear that Michael Malone was aggravated, at the very least, that the championship roster kept getting whittled down, and his veteran options kept dwindling. I have no idea whether he co-signed the Russell Westbrook move, but I imagine coaching Russell Westbrook is very difficult, because especially at this age of his career, I guess at this stage of his career, because when he was when he was young, I still had issues with a lot of his decision making, but he did so much to help a team. But at this stage of his career, it's like he takes a lot off the table. He doesn't necessarily bring a lot to the table. There's only a very limited amount of stuff that he can do, and you kind of have to like try to maximize that while minimizing all the shit that he does wrong. I imagine that's just really hard. It puts you at a disadvantage when you're trying to build lineups because he doesn't fit with everybody, because you can't put another non-shooter on the court. Like even Russell Westbrook and Aaron Gordon, that's a really weird fit, an extremely weird fit. If you just have two of them out there, and the Nuggets, like, they don't shoot a lot of threes, that's because they have nobody to shoot threes, and that puts them at a disadvantage. Like, they have Jamal Murray, they have Nikola Jokic, especially with Jokic at the 5. They could be a super high volume 3-point shooting team if they just built the right type of roster around him. Instead, they've got like young athletes who don't really know how to play yet and can't really shoot. And
low volume guys.
Like, how tough would their offense be to stop? I would love to see it if Jokic just had shooters around him.
Yeah. It's really never, even when they won, he didn't really ever have like more than 2 or maybe 3 at most legit shooters around him at any point in the game.
Yeah, and Porter Jr. can shoot, but he doesn't get a lot up.
Right.
Jamal Murray can really shoot. But he's not a super high volume guy.
Right. Bruce Brown wasn't certainly not a high volume guy.
He made a lot of them that year, but like definitely didn't shoot a lot of them. And I wouldn't certainly put him as like a knockdown guy.
Yeah.
So
same for Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, and when you look at like the Celtics, it's like they've had 3 straight years with 8 guys making 100 3-pointers.
Yeah.
I would bet I would bet the Nuggets have 3. I'm gonna look that up right now. I would bet they have 3 with 100 plus 3-pointers made this year. And that's just a huge difference.
Yeah.
There's just so few threats that they have out there that you have to really guard. And Jokic, he makes it work anyway. It doesn't really matter because he's so good. 3, I was right.
Nice.
Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic. Strother's almost there. Russell Westbrook, for better or worse, is almost there.
But yeah, the fact that they had to rely on, like, Murray's been hurt a lot. Like the fact you need like Malone needed Westbrook, or was refusing to play the younger guys more than him. Like, you can blame who you want there, but that being in that position, regardless, is just not the place you want to be in if you're trying to be a legitimate contender in a loaded Western Conference. So, yeah, it'll be another fascinating subplot of what should be a tremendous Western Conference playoff picture, especially in the first round. There should be some dynamite matchups out there. We'll be waiting where the Celtics land in the East, and we'll be with you guys all playoffs long here at Still Poddable, the best Celtics podcast in the world. Make sure you check us out at patreon.com/stillpoddable. Sam Jam Packard will be with you after every game all the way through. Me and Jay will be in as well. And we have, if you want to laugh your ass off, learn from informative fans, you check out the Patreon chat as well, which is the best thing out there for my money. So for Jay King of The Athletic, this is Brian Robb at Mass Live. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with you guys next week when we will be getting ready for a first round matchup.
Still Poddable, still Poddable. The postseason, still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh yeah!
Slow down from eating and drinking and all that wild stuff.